going back to Sheriff Richard Mack, people can get Don't Tread on Me, that I'm a consultant on and also in with yourself, at Infowars.com. And they've got to get it to every sheriff because it covers the same info that's in your book. But your book gets into more detail and is also, people respect books. It's important to have them. You explain the power of the states. It's written from a sheriff's perspective, a guy that's won at the Supreme Court. You have a lot of gravitas. Again, give people the website or a number so they can get your book and get it in the hands of sheriffs. This is like a stake through the heart of vampires, every sheriff that we wake up.
Well, that is sheriff-mack.com. Sheriff, 1 R, 2 Fs, and Mack, M-A-C-K. Just go to sheriff-mack.com. And the book actually needs to get to county commissioners and county attorneys. Most of the sheriffs in the country have the book. However, you need to follow up and make sure they read it. Just as you said, no one can guarantee they read it. We also have it on CD, so if somebody doesn't want to read, they can listen to it. And it is me reading the book. And then you can get these little booklets, and every state legislator, every county commissioner, every state and local official should see this little booklet, the Victory for State Sovereignty, because it reviews what we've been talking about here on the show, and it's in pocket-sized form, and in 10 minutes, your state rep or your local county commissioner or your local sheriff can see what this case actually did to restore state sovereignty in this
Okay, we're going to talk
country.
about your plan and versus what the feds are doing, the alternative, here in a moment. But I want to, since you are a sheriff from the West, I want to, draw this analogy here and then get involved with what's happening on the Arizona border right now and this act of treason by Obama. But going back, we've all seen Westerns.
Well, Alex, let me just reiterate something that you said. This is about solutions. This isn't just talking about things that are horrible and going on in our country. We could do that till next year and still not finish. This is about a solution that is reasonable, effective, quick, and doable and constitutional.
And it's the law.
Something we should already,
it's the law. And we're going to get into that in a moment, but I want to just give people so they have a mental image of what's happened so they can have respect for themselves again.
Okay.
We've all seen those Westerns and Matt Dillon and John Wayne, and I always thought growing up as a kid, those are just movies where there's a corrupt town with bad guys in it, robbing and raping and, oppressing and taking farmers' water and taking their daughters, and finally people stand up. Or I thought it was a Louis L'Amour novel. Now I've read a lot of histories of the West and things that happened in this country, and even after World War II in a Tennessee town when the vets came home and there was a corrupt government and they had to run them out. But this is what happened in 1776. It's what Andrew Jackson fought against. It's always a repeat of the scallywags, the carpetbaggers, the corrupt interests that come in, the Rockefeller men sending Pinkerton security, like in that Clint Eastwood movie where the mining town and the railroad men come and are killing people to take their claims. That's a composite of thousands of true events, but more often than not, people stood up because they were armed and fought back. And, the issue here is what's happening with the feds, what's happening in our society. We see that Hollywood image of the town finally standing up. That's what America is. That's what our counties are. That's what our societies are. And people, you've just got to get angry. You got to start talking. You got to turn the television set off. You got to get to the commissioner's court. You got to get with others. You got to get angry. And you got to get the facts and the Constitution. Because I'm going to say it again, it is like a stake through the heart of these vampires because our country was born in the fight for liberty. We've been through this over and over again. We're not the first people to go through this, and we've got the blueprint of how to beat these people.
We do, and it's every bit constitutional. It's every bit lawful, and it is a peaceful process. This will not hurt anyone except the traitors in Washington, D.C. There is no answer in Washington, D.C. It is the most corrupt place on the face of the planet, but we can make headway in our counties, and we can take America back county by county and state by state. But it's got to start with you, every one of your listeners. You've got to know and understand the principle of state sovereignty. Your sheriff has got to know and understand the principle of state sovereignty and local autonomy, and that's exactly what my lawsuit was about. Now, Judge John Roll said, and that's also quoted in my little booklet that I have here in my hand, The Victory for State Sovereignty, he said, Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the act. subjecting himself to possible sanctions. Well, my question is to every peace officer and sheriff in this country. When you are forced by the federal government and the lawmakers around you to choose between your oath or following laws and statutes, which one are you going to do? Are you going to side with the people and freedom, or are you going to continue to acquiesce and follow the...
Well, the founders had us swear to this oath because they wanted to point out this is the real law. This is the power. This is the America.
Exactly.
This is the republic. Not what some flim-flammer comes along later with them. And that's what Thomas Jefferson, George Washington said over and over again. You got to stick to this, not what lawyers come and invent later or what they try to twist out of it.
That's exactly correct. And this is all foundational. It's all fundamental. And the first page of my book, I'm glad you talked about Thomas Jefferson, because I quote him on the very first page of my book. And he says, when all government shall be drawn to Washington as the center of all power, it will render powerless the checks provided and become as venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated. The question is, Alex, to whom can your people turn? The people in Austin, Texas, or the people in southern Arizona, or the people throughout this country, who can they turn to for peace, safety, and protection when government from Washington, D.C. has become venal and oppressive? And the answer is your county sheriff and your local officials.
All right, well, let's describe the true role of the sheriff, because people have never been taught this. I mean, versus what's happening all over the country where the feds come in and will put tens of millions of dollars in and buy off sheriffs and counties to get the city to absorb the county when the county is the unit of the state. I mean, this is treason. I keep using that word. They know exactly what they're... This is federal conquest of the states in a very sneaky way.
Well, my case even addresses that, and Scalia brings up the issue of compromising local authority in order to take federal grants and federal money. The federal government is very wise. Let's not pretend anything here. This plan of attack to destroy state sovereignty and local autonomy and the power of the counties has been an orchestrated event. They've even voted sheriffs out in Connecticut. There are no more sheriffs in Connecticut. Massachusetts is trying to do the same thing. Ohio now has one county where the sheriff is no longer elected but appointed. And every sheriff that I've talked to, and I've been talking to hundreds of sheriffs this past year, every one of them, well, not every one of them, but there's about a half of them that are worried if they take strong stands against the federal government and do what my book suggests, that they might lose federal funding. And
again, that's a coward's mindset. We've gotten to this point of the sheriff being abolished because the enemy is attacking the Constitution and our republic. And instead of saying, oh, I better cower, you know, for the 5 years or whatever you're in, you ought to think about your kids and grandkids, and you should get up there and stand up. I mean, how do we come from the toughest, roughest, smartest people to a bunch of castrated cowards? I tell you, those sheriffs are pathetic.
Well, it's all about the money, and I have said this, and I say this in my book, that anyone in this country, I don't care if it's a sheriff, state rep, county commissioner, or anyone else, if you're willing to compromise liberty, if you're willing to compromise the freedom of your citizens to continue to take money, then you, sir, are the traitor, and you have betrayed your own people. This is time to stand, and when I sent this book to Sheriff Prince, I said, Sheriff, tell me honestly, is this book true, and is it the answer? And he says, of course it is. The problem is you've got too many damn wimpy sheriffs. And Alex, I'm just going to tell it like it is. If the sheriffs in this country have the courage to stand, that's the only thing we lack now, is courage within our local communities, courage from county attorneys, courage from county sheriffs and county commissioners to uphold and defend the Constitution for the people, and stop taking the money. Throw that stupid money out.
Yeah, we don't need quasi-federal deputized federal toadies. We need the counties and people not liking the feds. That was back when America was free and people were smart. I mean, going back to our founding, not these little pathetic toadies and creatures of the feds. We need men. We need strong leaders who are loved in their communities to bring back true peace officers, not these law enforcement lackeys who desecrate the Constitution and enforce all this made-up crud. Now, I want to bring up a subject here with you while we've got you, Sheriff Mack. We'll have you back soon. But I want to read to you from Encyclopedia Britannica, and it's the same thing in the definition, Wikipedia, they've all got it. High treason, the definition of high treason: participating in a war against one's country, attempting to overthrow its government, spying on its military, its diplomats, or its secret services for a hostile and foreign power, or attempting to kill its head of state, and it goes on, are the best known types. Now, the most classic archetypal is enemies inside the gates, who are traitors, opening the drawbridge to let the enemy in. Now,